Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy T for 365 Horror, and this is a horror movie discovery channel. I am just here to put as many horror movies on your watch list as possible. And in today's video, we are going to be looking at 15... Wait, what? 15? Are you sure it's actually 15? Holy shit. And we are going to be looking at 15 brand new releases for you guys to watch and stream today. So let's get into it right now. Now, we are going to get into the video, but before we do, I've got to remind you guys to please like and subscribe if you like this content. Also, this video is best watched with a movie tracker. I like to use Letterboxd. It's just the easiest way to keep track of the movies that you've seen and want to see. And lastly, these are just a preview. These are not reviews and recommendations. If you did want to see some reviews and recommendations, then I suggest you check out my Every Movie I Watched in a Month series, my You Should Watch series, or any of my movie list series. This is just a little something for the diehards like me that are always looking for something new to watch. And with that, let's get right into the movies. Now, I know the first question you guys got this week is 15 movies, why? And really, I want to say that the reason why there's 15 movies is because this is a little bit of an appreciation week. I've just been getting so much support from you guys, and it's awesome to see. The videos are getting tons of views, and this is my most popular series, so I only thought it right if I gave, it's a little bit of a crunch for me. I'm going to basically be filming the video on Friday because I like to actually double check that all the movies come out, and then I'm going to be editing it up and have it out by Saturday just so that Friday is included in the new movies. So you will not be getting last Friday's movies. These are this Friday's movies. This is the most up to date. I'm the plug. You guys are like jacked in, and it's going to be great. It's going to be a little bit more work, but seriously, the love that you guys have been giving me on this series, you deserve it. So this week is going to be including some of last week's Friday movies because I just started it, but this list also includes the movies that just came out yesterday. So the first movie we're going to be looking at this week is a horror thriller called The Demon Disorder, and it's available on Shudder. This movie tells the story of Graham, Jake, and Philip Riley and their deceased father. Their paths collide when a family secret is discovered, leading their father's garage to become the site of revenge from beyond the grave. It is directed by Stephen Boyle. Okay, so after watching the trailer for The Demon Disorder, this looks like a good, brutal parasite body horror. I mean, acting and production-wise, this one looks all right, but I would say that the shining element is just the brutal gore. Not only that, but we get a little bit of an alien vibe with this one, as the parasite, bursts out of people's bodies and just has a life of its own inside of its hosts. Now, even from the outset of the trailer, this one was just gory and brutal. One of the early scenes, we see some guy and he's eating some sort of chicken. It just looks totally gross. This one's going to be a good gore fest. Even though from the trailer it doesn't look like this movie exactly is going to have a lot of depth, it still looks like we're going to get a very bloody flick out of this one. If I'm in the mood for a movie that's super gory, this one will probably be higher or even top tier, but overall it's just going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
Dad?
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a horror thriller called Curse of the Sin Eater, and it's available on Tubi. A poor construction worker makes a deal with a dying business mogul to inherit billions, only to discover that he has also been cursed by the man's terrifying sins. It is directed by Justin Denton. Okay, after watching the trailer for Curse of the Sin Eater, this looks like a good curse-based horror. I really like the premise. I mean, the idea that in order to inherit a man's wealth, you have to eat a meal on his dead body, and unknowingly he eats the man's sins, just feels like a good and original premise. I also love these wish gone wrong type movies where everything you get comes with a price, and it looks like the character really does go through some dark and horrible situations after attaining this wealth. Now, amidst this man's trials and tribulations after getting this wealth, it looks like he starts having some sort of seeing of spirits, which means we could get some creeps and scares out of this flick. Overall, Curse of the Sin Eater looks like it's got some good promise, and it's going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
I take on all sins you carry, and I pawn my own soul. I actually ate his sins? What does that even mean?
You inherited all of this for a price.
The next movie we're going to take a look at is a crime horror thriller called Red Rooms, and it's available on Crave and VOD Digital. A model becomes obsessed with a high-profile murder trial. It is directed by Pascal Plante. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Red Rooms, this movie looks like a good, dark, true crime serial killer horror. Now, this movie looks artsy and weird, but thankfully, it looks like it's got a great premise that will be a good setup for it. Now, I have to admit that honestly, I am one of the people that's obsessed with true crime, and in this true crime obsessed world, it's really interesting to see a model that kind of really gets wrapped up and falls in too deep with this manipulative serial killer. Now, while I didn't exactly see overt creeps and scares, what I did see was a good story with good acting to support it. Also, throughout the trailer, there's some allusions to the fact that the killer isn't working alone, which means we could get some of that great detective work I love, and the story could have some good twists and turns. Personally, I think Red Rooms looks pretty intriguing, and it's going to get a regular spot on my watch list.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a motivé à assister au procès?
J'étais curieuse. J'en profite, j'ai un petit mot à dire à ces groupies. Ben, on vous voit. Vous devriez avoir honte.
Next, we're going to take a look at a straight horror called Don't Turn Out the Lights, and this movie is available on VOD Digital. A group of friends embark on a road trip to a music festival, oblivious to the supernatural horrors that await them along the way. Okay, after watching the trailer for Don't Turn Out the Lights, this movie looks like a creepy, scary, supernatural horror. Now, right away, the cast and the setting speaks to me because you know I love myself a good circle of friends story. And with some of the creepy stuff we see going on with the characters in the trailer, this movie looks like it could actually be scary. Now, the acting and production on this one looks good, and the story left me with just enough mystery and intrigue to really wonder what's going on and want to see it unfold. Don't Turn Out the Lights looks decent and will get a regular spot on my watch list.
Michael, what the hell is
What the hell is...
Stop it. Who is this?
Stop it. Who is this?
What do you want?
Next, we're going to take a look at another straight horror movie called Wolves Against the World, and it's available on VOD Digital. Two members of a defunct neo-Nazi metal band reunite at the site of their bandmate's suicide. One sinks into depravity and grievance, and one tries to atone for what he's done. What ensues is an occult battle of wills. It is directed by Quinn Armstrong. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Wolves Against the World, this one looks like an alright occult slasher. The acting and production was passable, but it was nothing that really impressed me. I also didn't see much in the way of creeps and scares in this one. Now, the characters being part of a defunct neo-Nazi band, looks like we could get some really disturbing kind of material out of this one, and it looked really bloody. So if you're into more of these forest-born occult slashers and more of like a heavy metal themed movie, this one might be for you, but for me, it's just gonna get a little bit of a lower spot on my watch list.
You said you were done with the movement. I am. I've outgrown it. I did a lot of work to not be that guy anymore. Just remember, I'm not the only murderer in this room.
Next, we're going to take a look at a horror thriller called Betrayal, and this one's available on Plex and VOD Digital.
That'd be revenge.
Three brothers return to the remote woodland where they killed their abusive father, only to discover his shallow grave is now empty, forcing them to question one another's loyalty with devastating consequences as fear and paranoia sets in. It is directed by Roger Griffiths. Okay, after watching the trailer for Betrayal, this one looks like a pretty good revenge horror. Now, the acting and production looks good on this one, and it looks like we're going to get a good thriller filled with betrayal, revenge, and plot twists. Now, on the downside, it doesn't look like we're going to get many creeps and scares in this one, and the gore looks kind of scant, but hopefully what we do get is a good story that keeps us engaged. Now, although Betrayal looks alright, it didn't exactly jump out at me, so it's going to get a little bit of a lower spot on my watch list.
He was dead. Then where is he then?
Next, we're going to take a look at a horror thriller called Wineville, and it's available on VOD Digital. A woman who fled her abusive father's vineyard as a teenager returns after his death. She uncovers the family's dark secrets, which have festered, leading to violence and death as she settles the estate. It is directed by Brandy Roderick. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Wineville, this looks like an okay kind of serial killer slasher. Now, although I wasn't totally thrilled with the acting in the trailer, it didn't look bad. Now, this one does look more like an 80s style kind of slasher, so I don't think it's really going to shine in the department of creeps and scares. Now, as far as it goes with gore, this is where the movie might hit for sure. Now, in the trailer, I did see a bunch of brutal violence and some pretty painful torture parts. Also, I noticed that the victims look pretty varied, so we may get a really good kill count. Now, trust me, I know sometimes in these films it looks like I put way too much weight on like violence and gore, but I really only do that when the movie is not scary and doesn't have an original premise, and that's where it comes to the point where I really rely on themes of gore to disturb and shock me and make an interesting movie. Now, the story just looks okay, but with the main character's mother also looking to take part in the murders, we could get some interesting situations and scenarios. Also, the main character being the murderer in this movie is male, and it looks like he seduces his victims, and it kind of goes between male and female victims, so we could get some kind of interesting themes out of that. Honestly, I'm not really 100 on whether the themes are going to be interesting, as it is just a trailer. While Wineville looks alright, it's still just going to get a little bit of a lower spot on my watch list.
A couple of days, and we're out of here. I promise.
I am your grandfather's little sister.
Walter, this is my Aunt Margaret.
Joe is our jack of all trades. He was your father's right-hand man.
Where'd they find you?
Please, just let me go.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a straight horror called Creeping Death, and this one's available on VOD Digital. Tim's mother has brain cancer, but his friends steal a sack, unleashing the Celtic spirit on Halloween night. They must survive the night or sacrifice their lives to the spirit, while the spirit pursues them for their trespass. It is directed by Matt Sampier. Ah, yes. Spooky season comes, bring on the Halloween horror. Creeping Death looks like a good supernatural slasher. I am always down for a good Halloween night movie. Now, I kind of like the premise of this one where there's like a bag and it has mysterious contents, and the mysterious contents cause mayhem when the bag is opened. And while I really do enjoy that premise, I just don't find it exactly unique or original. Now, while the acting seemed meh, the production definitely seemed alright, so I'm hoping that we do end up getting some interesting characters in this circle of friends setting. Now, the bright side to this one is it is pretty gory, if you're into that, of course. But even when we see the contents of this sack, it just has like entrails and body parts in it, which is pretty disgusting. And also we see glimpses of like something or a monster holding like a beating human heart. So I'm sure there's going to be more than enough gore in this one. Throughout the trailer, you only really get one glimpse of the monster, and I've got to say I definitely wasn't impressed, but again, it was only a very brief glimpse, so the monster could look a lot better in the actual movie. Now, you guys know me, I'm a gore hound, so Creeping Death will get a regular spot on my watch list.
Receiving multiple reports about strange events transpiring this Hallows Eve.
Go. Guys, what are we doing? I thought we were going to be partying all night.
Not without that bag.
Next movie we're going to look at is a straight horror called Trope, and it's available on BET+. Trope is a mysterious and dangerous story as Tracy plans a weekend getaway with her best friends and their daughters. What begins as a peaceful getaway quickly becomes a deadly nightmare as unexpected dangers and terrifying secrets unfold. It is directed by B. Harrison Smith. Okay, after watching the trailer for Trope, this looks like an okay-ish slasher. Now, one of the things that interested me is that this movie is a BET Plus original, and that's intriguing just because you don't see BET do very many horror movies. I also like the fact that even though the movie is called Trope, they didn't exactly beat us over the head with the usual tropes in the trailer. Now, I don't want to get too deep and into some sort of racialized conversation, but there's only so many times that I can laugh or find wit in irony-laden black experience depictions, so I'm glad that we didn't get too much of that in the trailer. Even at one part in the trailer, two characters look at each other and they're kind of like, they experimented on us. And in my head, I'm kind of like, okay, here we go. But then when they kind of flash over some newspapers, it says like Gen Z. So I was actually found that kind of refreshing. Because I mean, maybe I had a hope that they're focusing more on Gen Z as the group instead of like black people. Now, trust me, you've seen through my movies before. I like the blackening. I really like black humor and stuff. I like black people, obviously. There's just only so many times I can really hear slavery references or like ghetto jokes and really kind of find them unique and original. Now, entertaining at times? Of course. I'm pretty sure I'm the target audience for this material, but I do still like to see black projects that don't lean on these tropes as a crutch. Anyways, I'm sure I'm going a little too deep on this one, and we're just here for horror movies, so I'm gonna get back on topic. Now, while the production looked good, the acting just looked a little bit meh, but I did like the fact that they are attempting to bring us creeps and scares through these women's visions. Honestly, I thought Trope looked alright, more just watchable, so it is gonna get just a little bit lower of a spot on my watch list.
Why a cabin in the woods? Get you out of the city, get you off your phones. I think the time has come to tell them. It's not real.
Next, we're gonna take a look at a drama horror thriller called Ever After, and this movie's available on VOD Digital. Claire is overjoyed when her daughter Robin is miraculously revived after a fatal accident, but her relief turns to dread as Claire notices changes in her daughter, suspecting something dark has followed her back from the brink of death. It is directed by Robert Salerno. Okay, after watching the trailer for Hereafter, this looks like a good supernatural horror. Now, not only do I like the premise in this one, but I think that the cast looks excellent. I love Connie Britton, and I think Freya Hannah Mills does a really good job of playing a character that changes and deteriorates through the film. I also thought that this movie had a great potential for creeps and scares, not only through Freya Hannah Mills' character, but also through the supernatural entity she brings back with her. Now, one of the plot points I really enjoyed was that by the end of the trailer, it's almost like the characters, they know the identity of this entity, and that leaves me to believe that there's just more to this story, or perhaps maybe even a great plot twist. Now, be warned, this is a drama first, horror second, so I'm sure you're going to get more of a slow burn, but I really have a lot of hope for the interactions between these characters, seeing how weird the daughter gets. Now, Hereafter definitely looks like a pretty good film, and it's going to get a little bit of a higher priority on my watch list.
You're holding it too tight.
Sweetheart, put the bird down. She's changed. There's something different since the accident.
It makes sense, Claire, what you've just been through.
Everything okay, Mama?
Next movie we're going to take a look at is an action crime horror called The Crow, and this one's available on VOD Digital. Soulmates Eric and Shelley are brutally murdered. Given a chance to save the love of his life, Eric must sacrifice himself and traverse the worlds of the living and the dead, seeking revenge. It is directed by Rupert Sanders. Ah yes, the updated Crow. This movie looks like a decent action revenge horror. Now, I don't really mind that they remade this movie for a younger audience, but just from what I saw from the trailer, it seems like they lean a lot more into the romance, and it does look a lot more emo. But then again, I have to be honest, I haven't seen the original Crow in quite a while, so maybe that movie is just a lot more emo than I remember. Now, the cast looks alright and you get Bill Skarsgård, but I didn't actually like the new Crow. Now, this is probably going to be my nostalgia speaking, but it just looks like he's a little bit of a ripoff, and I just didn't picture him being this ass kicker. Again, I'm sure that my nostalgia is showing some bias here. Now on the bright side, the action in this film did look plentiful, bloody, and brutal. Now revenge horror movies always tend to have some like brutal violence and kills, which will do a film like this well because I don't think it's going to earn its stars on Creeps and Scares. The Crow looks alright, and more because it's something that I remember from my childhood, it's gonna earn a regular spot on my watch list.
Julie! Julie! Please don't do this!
Next, we're going to take a look at a comedy romance horror called The Zombie Wedding, and this one's available on VOD Digital.
I'm not dying in New Jersey!
Based on the hit interactive play, which premiered in 2015, the first ever wedding between a human bride and a zombie groom. The human guests need to learn how to behave. WWN reporters cover the wedding while trying to get out alive. It is directed by Micah Khan. Okay, so after watching the trailer for The Zombie Wedding, this definitely looks like a zany, what they're calling Zomcom. Now, unfortunately, based off what I saw in the trailer, I don't think this movie's for me, and honestly, I found little interest in it. Now, I want to give a full disclosure. Anybody who knows me knows I'm not really super big into comedy horror, so if I am going to watch a comedy horror, I prefer it to be raunchy with tons of gore in it. So to be completely honest, even though this movie isn't exactly for me, I'm covering this one for the people who are into comedy horror and would like a zany rom-com romance. Now, one of the good points I did find in this movie is I did actually really enjoy the premise. I think the idea of a human marrying a zombie and the two crowds kind of coming together, it really kind of makes for some funny situations where the humans are kind of always in danger. So, you know, they'll be like, give me a hug, and then they'll be like, whoa, not too close, you know? So I did find that there could be some interesting kind of interactions there. All in all, unless you guys tell me that this one is really good, it's probably going to get a watch last or skip from my watch list.
Isaac is dead to you. Do you hear me? Is that him? Oh.
Zach, my love, we can handle anything together.
Except if I turn into a zombie.
I'm not totally perfect either.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a comedy fantasy horror called Booger, and it's available on VOD Digital.
What the hell, man?
After the death of her best friend Izzy, Anna focuses all her attention on Booger, the stray cat which she and Izzy took in. When Booger bites her, she begins to undergo a strange transformation. It is directed by Mary Dodderman. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Booger, this looks like an interesting transformation body horror. From the trailer, the acting in this one didn't look too bad, but I wasn't fully buying into the comedy element. But I did like the character transformation that I was seeing on screen. What I liked was some of the things I saw the main character doing while transforming into this cat were both weird and gross. Now, I wouldn't throw this one on if I wanted to be creeped out or scared because I didn't really see much in the way of creeps and scares, but at least they did try to embody a bit of the horror element with this grotesque transformation. I'm glad if this one looks like a good one for comedy horror fans, but for me, this one's gonna get a little bit of a lower spot on my watch list.
I just want you to get better.
You can't make me better from Izzy dying. I lost Booger.
Next, we're gonna take a look at another comedy horror called A Halloween Feast, and this one's available on VOD Digital.
Whoa.
Former ballerina Angela descends into madness as her family tries to cope. After an infamous dinner, their lives spiral into unexpected chaos. All of the skeletons come out at the Halloween party. It is directed by Guile Branco. So after watching the trailer for A Halloween Feast, this looks like a pretty meh slasher. Now this is going to be another comedy movie that you can tell just does not focus on creeps or scares, and to me that's just a little bit disappointing. Now as for the story, it looked okay, but I wasn't really moved because it's just not an original premise, the dysfunctional family element, but some of the characters didn't look too bad. It does look like we could get a good descent into madness, as the mother looks violent and unhinged. They also introduced this vampire trick halfway through the trailer, and she just seems totally cold-blooded, so I'm sure we could get some laughs just through her cruelty alone. To be completely honest, other than those very small elements, none of the jokes were really hitting me, so A Halloween Feast is gonna get a lower spot on my watch list.
I'm aware of the fact that sometimes I act strangely.
You know, in all my years, I've never seen a case like this.
I'm sorry that I cut your finger off.
Wow, and I thought my family was dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Lastly, on this blockbuster extravaganza week, we are going to look at a straight horror film called Dead Teenagers, and this one's available on VOD Digital. 5 teenagers are stalked by a killer in the woods, but when the killer accidentally dies, the kids discover they cannot leave until they've fulfilled the script of the movie they're trapped in. They must decide who amongst them lives and dies. It is directed by Quinn Armstrong. So after watching the trailer for Dead Teenagers, this looks like a decent slasher. Now the acting seemed a little bit meh in some of the scenes I saw, and aside from a little bit of a unique premise story, this does look like a run-of-the-mill Circle of Friends slasher. We did get a couple of glimpses of gore throughout, but it just didn't look like anything too extreme. Now, while the story does have a little bit of a unique premise, it's nothing to write home about, as I feel like I've seen this kind of trapped in a movie or making a movie or part of a movie meta story done before. Although I use IMDb for the plot synopsises of movies, and this one didn't really have one, and while I was looking for a plot synopsis, some people did say that the script was really smart, so, I mean, that is a little bit of promise. Also, I am a sucker for a Circle of Friends teen slasher, so to be completely honest, Dead Teenagers will still get a regular spot on my watch list.
Do you know what's happening? It was all written long ago.
Well, guys, that's going to do it for this monumental episode of brand new releases to watch and stream. I hope you found some good movies for your watch list, and if you did like the content, please leave me a like and subscribe. Now, if I had to make some picks this week, the first movie I would pick is The Demon Disorder. I know it's just more pointless gore, but I do love a bunch of pointless gore, especially when it's wrapped around the trappings of like a parasitic body horror. I just feel like The Fly or anything where someone's body just does like completely gross things. It's just, sometimes it can be top tier and next level, and I really hope that that's what we get out of this one. And the last pick I have for you guys this week is the movie Hereafter. I just think it looks really creepy and scary. I love the cast. Again, I like Connie Britton. I like Freya Hannah Mills. And I really like some of the stuff that's happening. Not only do we get a good kind of transformation and the girl gets weird and we could get some good, like I said, character interactions, but it also looks like it does embody some creeps and scares with the entity that she brings back. And the fact that they know the entity kind of intrigues me. Like, there's just a lot that I feel has going for this movie. Well, guys, that's it for me. I've got to go, but I want to give a thanks and shout out to everybody who made it this far in the video. The support that all you guys are giving me is great, and I'm glad that you're enjoying finding great new movies is something that I always like to do as well. I've got to get out of here as I have got a ton of movies to watch. I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves and you've been well, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
What could happen in a place called Wineville?